Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Quantifying the Benefits of Omnichannel Media Buying. My name is Christina Dittman, and I'm Senior Manager of Analyst Relations at MediaMath. We're excited to share the results of the study we partnered with Forrester Consulting on to understand the quantitative and qualitative benefits of MediaMath's omnichannel media buying platform. On today's webinar, we have Forrester's Principal Consultant, Michelle Bishop, who will walk through the findings of the study, and MediaMath's Chief Strategy Officer, Dan Rosenberg, who will share about MediaMath's approach to omnichannel. Before handing it over to Dan, I'd like to note that there will be time for Q&A at the end, and all questions are encouraged. All attendees are placed on mute, so as questions come up throughout the presentation, please do submit them through the questions feature on your control panel. There will also be a recording of the webinar sent within the next few days, so you'll be able to refer back to any content that Dan and Michelle present. Again, thank you all for attending, and I'll let Dan take it from here.
Thanks, Christina. This is Dan Rosenberg. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at MediaMath, and I'm very excited to partner with Forrester on this study. I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar. We're huge believers in the power of omnichannel, and we've always believed that it drives better results and better efficiency for marketing, and it actually helps deliver marketing that consumers love. Marketing that's relevant, personalized, entertaining. The interesting part about delivering omnichannel is that it's not easy. It means connecting all the digital touch points, all the data, and means creating a unified view of the customer wherever you interact with them. And you need real infrastructure to do all that. And on top of that infrastructure, you need real decisioning capabilities to make it all actionable in real time. We call that artificial intelligence or machine learning. And all that's what we've been working on here at MediaMath for the last 10 years. And that's really what Forrester was investigating in this study. I see a handful of familiar names on the participant list. So we're working with many of you already. And for those of you that are new to MediaMath or new to omnichannel in general, we welcome you to the conversation. We hope you can learn from this webinar and ask some good questions, and happy to do follow-ups later. So welcome, thanks for joining, and I'll hand it off to Michelle here, and I'll happy to answer some questions at the end.
Thanks so much, Dan. Hello, everyone. As they mentioned, I'm Michelle S. Bishop. I'm a principal consultant with the Forrester Consulting Group of Forrester Research. I wanted to take some time today to discuss this recent study we conducted, the total economic impact of MediaMath's omnichannel platform. So our main points on the discussion today will be a quick primer on total economic impact before we delve into the findings from the study. So to provide some background on total economic impact, or TEI as we call it, our purpose with the study is really to talk about a MediaMath implementation in terms of business value, as we found that next level business case justifications are increasingly vital for critical investments. So what is TEI? Well, TEI, or total economic impact, is essentially an ROI, or return on investment model. TEI overlays traditional cost-benefit ROI analysis, as you can see in the graph, that's benefits and costs. But we also overlay that with flexibility, because we recognize the need to incorporate the value of flexibility or long-term impact, as well as incorporate the notion of risk or uncertainty, both on the cost and benefit estimates themselves. So in the case of the study and analysis, MediaMath commissioned Forrester to examine the total economic impact, or ROI, of MediaMath's omnichannel platform and the potential costs and benefits received from such an investment. So as part of this process, we interviewed 4 organizations which had invested in MediaMath. After the interviews, the next part of the process was to build a composite organization and a financial model based in part on the data received during the interviews. The model is meant to provide organizations with a way to measure and evaluate the financial issues around using MediaMath. The financial model constitutes the main body of the study and will be the focus of the presentation today. Now, I want to take a minute and talk about several of the key outcomes of the financial model. I do want to stress, however, that the main objective of our work here at the Forrester TEI Group is to provide an illustration of how organizations can look at the value of investing in MediaMath, and not to focus on the final financial metrics contained in the study. We want the study to be a starting point or a decision guide in your own analysis as you write your own business cases. So that being said, based on the data from the interviews, there were several key findings that came out during this process. In the model constructed, the financial metrics illustrate that the composite organization achieved a payback within 1 year of deployment as a result of their investment, and a risk-adjusted return on investment of 534% over a 3-year analysis. We found from interviews with these 4 customers that MediaMath drives process efficiency and improved campaign performance. We quantify the benefits in sort of these 4 separate areas. The first benefit was really around the customers saw increased campaign performance with omnichannel management. And this, we can talk more about these metrics that interviewees reported to us, but these included, doubled return on ad spend, 200% increase in click-through rates. Other benefits that were quantified was improved operational efficiency, so more productivity for members on the campaign team. Other benefits quantified was economies of scale from aggregated media spend, cutting overall platform fees. And the last area of benefit was around revenue from increased client spend. As of course, a number of the agencies we talked to saw that they got increasing ad spend from their clients as they showed such good performance improvement. Now, let's look a little at the customer journey and key results. So as we mentioned earlier, we interviewed 4 customers for the study, 3 agencies and 1 brand. So from the customer interviews, we found that the organizations had varying drivers for engaging with MediaMath. Customers wanted a more customer-centric marketing approach and control over the customer experience across channels. We heard that they wanted to have that sort of granular campaign set of capabilities for their sophisticated clients. A number of the companies we talked to needed to upgrade or change a legacy platform to get the capabilities they needed for their clients. So they were looking for a cost-efficient platform. We heard that a lot. They were looking for responsive service and support. We also heard from some of them that they wanted an open platform and the ability to work with many partners and have customization possibilities. So by implementing MediaMath, the key results that emerged, as mentioned earlier, was around full visibility into media spend. They saw improved campaign performance, as we mentioned earlier, through better omni-channel management. And last was around improved operational efficiency and economies of scale from aggregated media buying. So I'd like to show you some quotes that we heard from the interviewees. One chief media officer of an agency said, "Consolidation, budget allocation, and reallocation is one of the biggest benefits of MediaMath. Before, we were forced to spend budget on channels that don't perform as well. Now moving budget between those channels is very easy." So again, that was a capability that they appreciated. Another CEO said, "We delivered notable performance improvement by utilizing MediaMath versus other DSPs. For one specific client, we improved CPA goals by 50% using MediaMath's suite of tools such as cross-channel optimization." Another interesting result that one interviewee shared, a VP of sales operations, said that externally with the existing clients being largely CPA and return on ad spend focused, we've seen a marked improvement in our ability to deliver toward our KPIs. I want to say that our biggest advertiser, we've cut their CPA almost in half year over year. So again, these were very good results that we heard from the various interviewees. So now that we've heard sort of little individual stories from the customers we interviewed, I'd like to introduce sort of the composite organization, as the model was driven in large part based on the characteristics. So our composite organization is an ad agency. We interviewed more agencies than we did interview brands. This ad agency had previously various point solutions that they were using for client campaigns, and they consolidated on MediaMath for omnichannel buys. Campaigns around display, mobile, and video, and the like. So other qualitative benefits that were brought up by some of the interviewees around, we talked about the quantified benefits, but other qualitative benefits that the companies we interviewed mentioned was around increased transparency and better reporting with full visibility into media spend. We already talked about that improved campaign performance. Customers also talked about the ability to tap into premium inventory. Other customers talked about being able to deliver a better customer experience with features such as frequency capping and sequential messaging. And I think a last benefit that we should bring up was that improved customer service. A number of the organizations we talked to said, the service provided by MediaMath was kind of one of the driving factors in their decision to choose this vendor. They talked about that service component was really a strong factor in their choice, because of the service component, they were better able to optimize their campaigns and see better performance. Now I want to talk next, now that we've talked about the qualitative benefits, I want to move on to the breakdown of the major areas of benefits and cost savings that we quantified during our analysis. The next several slides will show more detail as to how we calculated each of these benefits. In the interest of time, I will only briefly discuss the benefits, but I think you get to keep a copy of these slides, and of course you can always look at the study to review the metrics and the calculations that we use. One thing is we want to be as transparent as possible into the way we calculate things, so everything is sort of laid out in the study. So I'd like to bring up some of the KPIs reported by the customers we interviewed on improved campaign performance. So what we heard, from customers was around increased profitability by 80%, doubled based on lifetime value. One customer talked about doubling return on ad spend. They went from 3x return on ad spend to 6x. Customers also talked about improved CPA, or cost per action, by as much as 500%. The CPA reductions that we heard range from about a 47% CPA reduction to 80% CPA reduction. So again, a wide range there. We also heard from some customers that they saw click-through rates that were 200% better for the same audience segment and ads when they were doing their tests. And one firm we talked to reported just overall improved campaign performance in terms of, they wanted to increase time on site, improve average page views, and they said they got 20% better results compared to working directly with publishers. So these are some of the sort of individual stories reported by the customers we interviewed. So again, this just summarizes what we talked about earlier, that reduced conversion costs and optimized campaign spend due to omnichannel management. Customers we interviewed talked about better tools, such as that cross-channel optimization, fluid budget allocation, holistic frequency capping. These were some of the tools they used to sort of get those results. So the next benefit, so we talked about the metrics and the KPIs reported by the various customers we interviewed around campaign performance. Now let's talk a little bit more about what was quantified for the composite organization. So what we heard from a number of the companies we interviewed was they saw improved operational efficiency by moving to the MediaMath platform. And this was really around getting improved workflow and more efficient processes. A lot of it was around just, they were working with multiple platforms before, and they now were working with one platform with MediaMath. So that was a lot of the of this operational efficiency. That was a lot of the source of that operational efficiency. One agency we interviewed, they had about 4 guys building tools on their legacy bidding platform. They were spending a lot of time on systems management, and by shifting to MediaMath, they were able to focus more on campaign management. Those 4 people they had went down to 1, so they were able to save 3 headcount. And as they said, this agency we interviewed, they talked about, by moving all media buys to MediaMath, it was a lot easier to manage 1 vendor versus 5 or 6. So that was what we heard from that agency. Another agency we interviewed talked about, they saved folks working about each individual working on these campaigns about 3 hours of work a day. So that's, more than 30% of work hours, because from moving again from multiple platforms to one platform in MediaMath, and they talked about how they got better reporting and all that stuff as part of all the operational efficiencies that they got. So we were very conservative in our analysis. So, that we heard that from one agency, they went from 4 people to 1 person. Again, we're conservative. We said, all right, for these 4 workers, we use the 30% time saved for these agency resources and 4 people working on these current campaigns. And at an annual compensation of $75,000, you just multiply that. Again, we use annual comp. We don't use just salary in our calculations. We use salary plus benefits. And one interesting thing we do to be very conservative in our analysis with TEI is that we say that if you save 30% of your time, we say only 50% of that time is used for productive work. I mean, the other 50%, you might be going to get lunch, going to get coffee, chatting with your coworkers. So again, when customers report to us, oh, we saved 30% of that time, in our calculations that we use in our ROI, we say only 50% of that time is captured for productivity savings. So again, that's just a way for us to be as conservative as possible when people report time savings for us, and when we consider that, what we consider in our ROI model. Okay, so that's how we calculated improved operational efficiency, and in the study that comes to about 106,000 net present value over the 3-year analysis. So the next benefit that we quantified was around improved savings from aggregated media spend. And again, organizations reported to us that by aggregating media buy volumes through MediaMath, they were able to cut platform fees by half, so by 50%, compared to the previous environment when they had multiple vendors for different channels. Again, going from multiple platforms to 1 platform. So for the composite organization, with about 14.4 million total client campaign spend, that means they save about, for the agency, again, this is told from the agency perspective, they save about $504,000 in fees per year. And again, at Forrester, we're conservative. We don't include that entire $504,000 in our ROI analysis. We consider that's the revenue part. We consider the incremental profit really as what we use in our ROI model. So we apply a profit margin of 17%. That gives us over 3 years, because of that aggregated media spend savings, the organization gets around $202,000 over 3 years in value. Okay, so that's how we quantify that particular benefit. The next benefit that we quantified is around increased client spend due to improved performance. And again, for the agencies we interviewed, I mean, this is obviously not going to apply if you're a brand, but if you're an agency, this means that you're showing improved campaign performance because you shifted to using MediaMath. Your clients are going to spend more with you. What we heard from organizations was, like as that quote earlier, one high growth client increased ad spend by 350%. Now, for this study, we did, again, we were very conservative. We said, high growth clients increase ad spend by 350%. Medium growth clients probably around by 50%. So we're not going to use a 350% number for everything, right? And we say not all clients are high growth. Maybe 30% of your clients are high growth, 70% are medium growth. And that gives an additional revenue, annual revenue, about $3.024 million for the entire organization. And then once you have that 3.024 million, multiply that by the profit margin and agents, that gives us revenue over 3 years. An incremental profit is what we use for the ROI of around 689,000. So this is really this ROI model is told from the agency's perspective. And so this is the majority of the benefit is really, you're showing improved campaign performance, your clients are going to spend more with you, you're getting more fees. So that's sort of the model that we have and that we had in the case study. So these were all the benefits that we quantified. And we look at it over 3 years. So we project these numbers over 3 years. And again, we're, as you can see, like we were very conservative about that incremental agency revenue from performance improvement. We don't say you get that in year one. Year one, you're proving yourself. You're showing, we moved to MediaMath, here are your results. Years 2 and 3 was when you really see the sort of that increased agency revenue from your shift. And that gives us total benefits over 3 years of 1.2 million, net present value of about 998,000. So those are the costs, those are the benefits. So we'll also want to consider the costs in an ROI model. And in our costs here, again, from the agency perspective, the cost to the agency of implementing MediaMath is really just, the implementation plus the training costs. And you have some, 82,500 in year one, and apart from the initial 82,500. Again, we thought of this in terms of sort of 6 months of deployment, and in the first phase, and then, another 3-month phase in sort of the first year. So that spreads it out. Those 6 months are spread out for initial and year one. So again, that gives us total costs over the 3 years of $157,500. In this analysis, the platform fees are passed on to the client and not incurred by the agency, so we did not include that in the costs. Now, if you're doing this ROI model from a brand perspective, then they would have to include the MediaMath platform fees as part of that cost. All right. So that was the last quantified benefit. I also want to talk about flexibility and risk. So flexibility from the TI perspective, it's when we talk about benefits in terms of providing an organization with the ability to engage in future initiatives for additional benefit. So for the agencies, they'll get future benefit when they deploy MediaMath to sort of their other clients. They'll also get, for brands, if you expand to other products or other channels, these are areas of additional benefit you can get from your initial implementation. And then, of course, what we didn't list here is with your work with MediaMath, as they constantly improve, as they add more capabilities, you sort of, as a client, you sort of get to take advantage of those with your contract with them. So those are areas of future benefit. And then we also talk about risk. Now, as you see our calculations, you'll see in the presentation, you'll see in the study, we sort of have a risk adjustment factor. We always risk adjust any of our numbers down by a certain factor. The document contains far more detail into the intricacies of how we adjust for risk within the TI model. For the purposes of this presentation, the key ideas really are a risk adjustment may reduce the benefit to an organization, and risk adjustment may increase the cost to an organization. Again, this is Forrester's methodology and a way of arriving at a more conservative estimate for ROI. So not only do we say when you're looking at productivity savings, just take 50% of that, just consider 50% of that as a benefit. We also add another, 5% risk adjustment for variability. Again, we want to be as conservative as possible when we're doing this analysis. So that's a sort of overview of flexibility and how we looked at impact risk and implementation risk in our analysis. So just to conclude, so from our case study of a composite organization based on the 4 customers that we interviewed who have implemented MediaMath, we found that for these organizations, MediaMath drives process efficiency and improved campaign performance. As we mentioned earlier, the benefits we quantified in the case study include improved operational efficiency, economies of scale from aggregated media buying, and revenue from increased client spend. And of course, improved campaign performance through omnichannel management. So with that, we conclude my part of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions on the MediaMath study and on the Forrester TI methodology, I just wanted to leave you with my number and my email address. Feel free to contact me. My details are listed here if you have any questions on the study. Thank you very much.
Great, and now let's open it up to questions for the group. The first question we have is, one person was wondering how they should be thinking about KPIs for omni-channel success. Maybe we'll have Dan answer that one.
Okay, yeah, great. This is Dan. So I really like the methodology that Forrester uses in this study. They really kind of break it up into 2 parts. One is the performance impact on the campaign. And just a word about that. I mean, at MediaMath, we really think about performance as really any measurable outcome, but we really, the philosophy is to focus on real business outcomes like actual sales, whether that's in a store or online, and actually even better, not just sales, but gross margin. I mean, that's the real thing that moves the bottom line for customers. But it could also mean just driving people to a site or just into the store before a purchase if it's a long consideration type sales cycle, or registering for more information, or really anything that's measurable. Now, of course, marketers often think about more indirect metrics like clicks or impressions or some kind of indication of interest, which we also support. The challenge with that is that they are indirect and they're not a great measure for the actual business that you're trying to drive, and have an unfortunate side effect of also being easy to fake, and that kind of opens up a whole separate conversation about fraud and that sort of thing. So we're always focused on the real world business outcomes, and that comes from really setting up your campaigns and your omni-channel marketing approach to really connect into measure all those outcome touch points. So that's all kind of the first part, is the performance. The other one that I really like in this study is just the measurement around efficiency. And marketers aren't always thinking about the full stream impact of using one approach or one tool, around really like a total cost of ownership, or the TI. We think about how many people it requires to operate campaigns and different tools and all that. And it's one thing that's really interesting about this one. The other part I will say is that this all gets really interesting in the future as you start to add more consumer touch points, and more touch points become addressable. And I'm not just talking about paid, and perhaps in the future not just paid digital, but online and offline kinds of marketing. But then you start to reach across into owned marketing touch points as well, and that's where you really start to see the huge impact of these kinds of studies.
Great, thank you, Dan. Next question we have is, can you explain what the before state for the clients were versus the after state? Maybe Michelle, you can take that one?
So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the clients we talked to, they were really moving from sort of multiple platforms, and so to a single platform on MediaMath, again, sort of for the omni-channel management. I mean, one group we talked to, talked about they settled on this a bidding provider we shall not name, and they also needed a series of video DSPs as well. They also had for mobile, and what they found that they were very concerned that they kind of needed all these tools to plug everything in. They were spending so much time and resources just handling all sort of the different platforms they were working on, and so basically they were very relieved to kind of be able to sort of align and sort of not spend as many resources on managing and system development and plugging things in with their legacy platform and their legacy solutions, point solutions, so to speak.
Great, thank you, Michelle. One last question we have was on the channels that are available now. So they're wondering, what channels can you buy on MediaMath now and what are on the roadmap? Dan, maybe you can take that one with the addressable touch points.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. When we think about we think about all addressable real-time touch points, and today that's a real focus on paid digital, but it won't be that way forever. But what we think about today is really supporting every combination of device and format and publisher type. So on device, that means buying on mobile phones, on tablets, laptops, desktops, connected TVs. You're going to hear us talk more about that as we head into next year as well. Outdoor digital displays. I mean, that's all in the device group. On the formats, it means of course static, but dynamic, and video ads with full sound and motion. Then audio only ads on services like Spotify and iHeartRadio. So that's the format. And then the last one's like the publisher type, which means reaching consumers on top websites, of course, but also long tail. I mean, wherever they may be. Interesting subtlety on mobile is it means on mobile web, but also in mobile apps. It means also reaching consumers inside some of the media environments that have specialized API buying requirements, or some people call that walled gardens. We don't really think about it that way, but Facebook and Instagram have specialized buying tools for the way you can show ads within Facebook and Instagram. And you'll hear us talk more, about adding, more of those, publisher types going into next year as well. So we do all of that today. And for us, when we think about omnichannel, again, back to addressable real-time touch points, that's just going to grow over time. And new and interesting touch points are going to come into the frame, like AR and VR. More of the publishers that have those special buying modes, and you'll even see us start to connect that and support that kind of coordinated messaging into, from paid into, quote unquote, own channels like email and search and website optimization. I mean, it's, just think that, all that messaging, all those touch points really should be connected, the same imagery, the same creative, the same kind of sequencing of the message with customers, like all of that needs to be connected, even so far as into, the data that gets in the hands of call center representatives in real time. So, that's, how we're thinking about omnichannel. It's a term that gets used in a lot of different ways by a lot of folks. That's how we think about it. And we're really just getting started on this, and it's just going to become more powerful as we go. It's going to be just, better and better for marketers.
Great. Thank you, Michelle and Dan, and thank you everyone for attending. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and for any additional questions we didn't get to, we will follow up directly via email. As mentioned, there will be a recording of the webinar sent around, and we encourage you to reach out with any additional questions. Our contact information is included in the email of the recording, so please do not hesitate to reach out with any more questions. Thank you again, and we hope to have you at another webinar in the future.